Welcome, everybody. We'll just give everybody a moment to come in and join today's conversation. I hope you're all doing well on this Monday. All right, we've got quite a few people in the room who have joined us, so I think we're going to begin. Welcome, everybody. I'm Kevin Armstrong. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Summit, and I'm really excited today to be able to have this conversation with some incredible folks. We're going to cover some of the biggest shifts impacting the IT world today. So with me today, I am incredibly happy to be able to have a couple of industry insiders and thought leaders who have been able to join us. We've got Jeff DeVerter, who is a special guest and a member of the Forbes Technology Council, and Jordan Lowe, who's the founder of Deft, a Summit company, and he's our Chief Strategy Officer as well. So Jeff and Jordan, why don't you say a quick hello and introduce yourselves?
Hey, everybody. My name is Jeff DeVerter. So glad to be here. What a great invitation. Amazing conversation we're going to get to have today, and really looking forward to it. So folks, buckle up. There's a lot of information coming your way. Get your notepads out.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Excited to be here with you guys. And yeah, as Kevin said, founder Deft and currently a Chief Strategy Officer here at Summit. So let's kick it off.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys for being here. So a couple of quick things. We're going to cover a couple of topics. I thought maybe a good idea up front to give you a sneak peek as to some of the topics we're going to cover today. And then I'll dive a little bit deeper into these as we go with our esteemed guests. We're going to cover cloud repatriation. What does it mean? What's the opportunity? Why are we even talking about it? We'll get into that a little bit. We're going to talk about AI workloads. How is the AI trend impacting IT and infrastructure and decisions that leaders are making out there right now? We're going to talk about future-proofing your infrastructure. Another topic we're going to hit on is power in the grid and how some of the limitations are impacting IT and infrastructure decisions. And then we're going to go to an open Q&A. So it's important on you to help me out during the Q&A. I know I'm going to enjoy talking to both Jeff and Jordan, but we're really here for you. So if you would do me a favor, write down your questions. There's a Q&A section right at the top. And if you'll write down your questions in the Q&A section, we will get to those. Because if you ask it, we'll answer. Hopefully we'll have enough time today to do that. But either way, we will get back to you and answer your questions afterwards if we run out of time for any reason. Okay? So the first topic that we threw out there is kind of cloud repatriation. What's going on out there in the ecosystem? It's a phrase that I've heard, out there. Jordan and Jeff, we all go to events all the time, and we're hearing quite a bit about cloud repatriation, public cloud versus private cloud, and whatnot. And I really think before we even talk about our own perspectives here, I think it's interesting when you look at this is a recent Barclays CIO survey, and it's an interesting data point. 83% of enterprises plan to move workloads back to the private cloud from the public cloud. So we're not just making this stuff up, right? I mean, this is an industry study that was done, and it doesn't mean they're moving everything out of the public cloud, but it is an interesting and a pretty quick shift here. So Jordan, talk to me about why companies are pulling back from being all in with AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, all the hyperscalers.
This is something we've talked about, for a long time. And I mean, truthfully, all these workloads, a lot of them work best in a hybrid situation. It depends on the company and what they're trying to do, what kind of workloads they have. But I mean, hybrid's really been the right solution for a lot of customers over a long time. And it's, the cloud makes a lot of sense for the right opportunities for the right workloads. And obviously those data centers or on-prem stuff makes sense for different stuff. So, there's a lot of reasons for, the more public shift happening right now. A lot of people are kind of taking a closer look at costs again right now. They're taking a closer look at performance. There's obviously a lot of AI stuff we'll get into right now. And a lot of the AI stuff is going to be very expensive to do with the public clouds. Just everyone's excited about it. Everybody's playing with it. So that means the cost is going to be a little bit high. The cloud's always the right place for a lot of burstable workloads, for things that don't need to run all the time. But realistically, hybrid is kind of always been the right solution for everybody, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, and Jeff, while we're on this particular topic, I mean, we see cost as an issue, performance as an issue, GPUs, really the need for high power computing capabilities. Any insights from you on this particular topic?
Yeah, I think as we think about repatriation at large as a larger conversation, what's really happening is that companies are now looking at these environments not as a one size fits all. In other words, we are 100% public cloud. We are 100% private cloud. Now we're going to choose the right workloads, not even necessarily by division or department, but by the application, which is really where the decision used to be. It's how we used to think about these things until we got all crazy with the cloud. And now people are looking at it as fit for purpose tool that can be applied to the right application at the right time, and with the full recognition that that may change over time, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, very, very, very true. It's not just the folks who are analyzing the industry. Even the hyperscalers are admitting that this is a thing, that it's a hybrid world that we're moving towards and we're moving back to. It's almost cyclical, right? I think, Jeff, you and I were at an event recently, and I was talking with you about how trends come and go, and it's always funny. It's like fashion, like, it comes back around, right? And it feels like we've come back around a little bit. But with AWS here, talking to regulators and saying, look, we're openly admitting that our customers are moving to a hybrid environment. Right. And, you've talked a little bit about, from an industry side, but, Jordan, it's that private versus public discussion that we've kind of gone back and forth on over the years, right? What are your thoughts there on even AWS coming out and admitting this?
Yeah, I mean, part of this is a little bit of, I do want to say a little bit of this, a little bit of politics in this as well, which I don't know if we want to dig into today, but sure. I mean, this is true. I mean, a lot of people see the news, they want to, address, there's, we have a customer, obviously, Basecamp 37 Signals, who, obviously is very public about their kind of move off Amazon. And, they want to address this. They want to have that conversation, at least put it out there, at least they see it. We've got, we even have a slide for this. This is great. But I mean, it's all about,
got to be prepared.
It's all about the it's all about having the rightful stuff in the right place, right? So, I mean, for example, these guys, figured out the right workloads. Some workloads belong in the cloud, some workloads don't. I know that the last thing they're working on is storage. Storage, again, some stuff, long-term stuff. There's great prices out there for having, for cold storage out in the clouds. Sometimes it's impossible to beat that. Those prices in your own data center, but depending on what else you're doing, there's a way to, there's lots of ways to kind of get that storage for a much lower price if it's busy to put it in your data center.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, Jeff. This is a customer of ours, and it's really telling. When they went into the analysis that we did for them, they weren't 100% sure. Am I going to be able to save money? Is this the right decision? As an executive, I made this strong move to the public cloud, and now I'm potentially going to admit that I need to undo that, right? And in the end, we found a pretty considerable cost savings for them, but also gave them back some agility and ability to manage their environment. Is this something you're hearing from your peers as well and what they're looking at?
Yeah, I'm hearing it all over the place. And again, to the point that people are making decisions that are right for them at a certain time, but conditions change. They're always changing. And so you use the word agility. Agility is key for businesses today. The tool sets are evolving, the environments are evolving. So you've got to be able to take an honest look at your environment on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis and make sure that where you've chosen to be is where you still need to be. And quite frankly, for a lot of workloads, especially one of this size, it makes perfect sense to be in a private cloud environment. These are in large part very steady environments with very known growth patterns, and that makes it perfect for a private cloud environment. For a lot of different reasons. That first and foremost, which you've already mentioned, is the cost aspect. But other things you want to think about is how about your people? How about how smart are they at working in those environments? How about compliance? How about security? There's all sorts of variables that play into different businesses at different amounts. And so it's great to see a company like this, continuing to evolve into the environment that's right for them.
Yeah, You and I, Jeff, are going to do another session in a couple of weeks, and we'll
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that at the end. I'll make note of that, and we would welcome you who are out there watching today to join us. I mean, our what we're trying to do is really bring these trends to light and go into some depth so that you can have a better conversation with your customers or with us, or with just know how to tackle it. But this is very, very much on the top of people's minds right now. But moving on to the next trend that we mentioned, we talked about AI and putting AI workloads where they belong. So if it is a public and private world, right, and if we're looking at all these different options from a cloud and infrastructure perspective, you know, the other thing that we hear every day is AI, right? And what is it going to look like, and what decisions should I be making, and how do I support it? And there's investment and overinvestment and use cases being built, all sorts of different things going on. But Jordan, talk to me a little bit about what some of the factors are that tech leaders should be thinking about and considering when deciding where to run their AI and other GPU intensive workloads.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big conversation, a big topic. We could do a whole webinar just on this. But I mean, there's a lot of different stuff you can do with AI, right? You have LLMs, you have the language models, inference, the scale you need. Are you doing this in real time? Are you going to be doing this? You're doing a big workload. Are you going to go, run one big process for 3 days and shut it off? Do you need that done in 5 minutes? Can that take 2 weeks? So all of these things kind of help you make that decision about, is it make sense to put it in the cloud? Does it make sense to put it in the data center? And also what type of resources and what type of equipment you need for this. A lot of the parts of this, that we touched on a little bit earlier is also around the staff and around the capabilities of your staff and your teams. If they, what systems can they use, what models, what kind of, what systems can they use to use these things, right? Different cloud providers also provide different, you can have different levels of ability when it comes to using these platforms. If you have a team that could just throw a GPU in a server and they're good to go from there, that's one thing. And if you need someone to kind of give you more of an interface and a more kind of fully managed, platform to run your AI stuff on, that's a totally different thing. One of the big, factors, that we've seen with our customers that have been really around storage. There's a lot of people doing AI stuff with, very large models, right? Say you want to do some learning on some video, and you might have, petabytes of video you want to use. Moving that data around. I mean, obviously, there's cost-effective ways to put it in the data center, cost-effective ways to put it in the clouds. What can be a challenge is moving it around. It takes a lot of time, and it could also take a lot of money to make those moves, putting it in, taking it out, and that's always been something we've talked to people about. And again, there's you always need the kind of the right examples. I've always given an example about kind of like the New York Times. Back in the day, they wanted a PDF all of their newspapers from the last 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, right? That's something you fire that up on Amazon and get it done in 3 hours with 10,000 VMs, and that's a great solution for that. But if you could do that in, if it's okay to wait a month and do that on a couple of servers, it's going to cost you 5% of what you just paid Amazon. So it's really, depends how fast you need it, the capabilities of your staff and what the time frame, what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and Jeff, I know you and I have talked quite a bit about AI and the impact of AI on decision making and the overall conversation. As a matter of fact, it's taking over as kind of the highlight of a lot of the industry events that we're going to. Generally speaking, what are you seeing and hearing on your end?
Well, I'm encouraged to kind of go back to just what we've been talking about, and that is AI is a very broad term, and it means a lot of different things. AI is what is curating your Netflix and your YouTube feeds. AI is what is helping you autocomplete your email. AI is also, what you may be taking, what Jordan just mentioned, where the New York Times wanted to get all of their newspapers from the past 30 years put into a PDF form. Well, what if they wanted to look at trends over time with that data and really analyze the work that they're doing? That is a very different use case. Now, where are we going to run those environments? And are they private to us, or are they things that we're going to make available? So I'm going to encourage common sense when it comes back to thinking about AI. Are you trying to make a grocery list that is creative and different, or are you trying to analyze your customer patterns over decades, perhaps? And that is very proprietary and interesting information to you that you want to keep safe, that you want to keep secure, that you also want to do in the most cost-effective way possible. Are you going to use a large public LLM, or maybe a small language model that you're going to run in your own data center? These are the thoughtful decisions that need to be made when approaching a workload like AI.
I mean, it's such great input. Jordan, in your role as Chief Strategy Officer here, I know you are called upon consistently with our team, bringing in some experts to really talk to our customers, because they're struggling with some of these decisions, trying to figure out what direction to go. How do I how do I pick what my roadmap looks like? And that's really something that I think, you've been spending quite a bit of time with our thought leaders at our customer sites, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into all these decisions, and not only for AI, but really, the on the government side, there's a lot of data restrictions around different countries. So there's also a lot of things you have to think about here about, not even only with AI, but any customer data, right? You need to keep that, the GPDR is a version of that. In Europe, for example, if you have a customer in Germany, they would like to, that data should stay within Germany. Same kind of thing with these models. Like if you have that same data you're processing with the AI, a lot of that stuff is, the intent will be that data will want to stay in that country, and you want to keep all that stuff in those places. So that adds a lot of different hoops to kind of jump through to do some of these projects, and how what they cost, and how it, and some of them make sense, not to make sense to do it on the cloud. Again, all these are small things that kind of make up a strategy here that we obviously talk to our customers about all the time.
Yeah, perfect. So moving on to that next trend that we mentioned up front at the top is, this kind of vague reference to how do I future-proof my IT infrastructure, right? But what we're trying to say there is, I think executives get stressed about, am I making decisions now that I'm going to have to unwind? Am I really preparing our company and our infrastructure? Are we investing in the right ways? Are we making ourselves as secure as we need to be? How do I deal with AI, edge computing, quantum computing, all of these different things? So, Jeff, maybe you could give us kind of your take on, can you even future-proof your IT and infrastructure? Because everything is always evolving, right?
Yeah, everything's evolving, and I think I've made the comment a few times that you have to just be humble and honest with yourself, and be able to look back at the decisions you've made and decide if those decisions are right for you today. They may or they may not be. But when we think about IT projects, I mean, all of us who work in IT are sort of here because we love IT. I mean, it's fun to play with. It's fun to wake up in the morning and see what new things have occurred since you went to sleep. How many thousands of new features did the cloud providers come up with? What new things were invented? But at the end of the day, all of that technology for businesses, and for if it's your hobby, this doesn't apply unless you have to, get approval to buy some new cool tech to play with around the house. But the reality is that tech in a business has to serve the business. Meaning, is it going to make your products better, faster, cheaper, more unique? Or is it going to do that for your people? Is it going to give them more time back in their day? Is it going to allow them to be the special, amazing humans that they are, that you as business leaders hired them for, and help get away the drudgery that might exist in their day, and make them more valuable assets to your organization? Is it going to make your customers happier with the service that they're getting from you as an organization, or from the products that you're selling them? Is it going to make those products cheaper, more competitive? These are the ways you need to think about an IT project, which, by the way, is how we used to think about IT all the time. But IT more and more is taking a front seat in those decisions, because it's not just this utilitarian thing that makes our core applications run. It truly is, and has the potential to be, that core element, that X factor, that thing that is going to set you and your organization apart. You just have to spend the time to investigate it and make sure that it is serving your organization.
Yeah, and Jordan, you built this amazing Server Central into Deft, and now a part of the Summit family. You've continually built businesses that were helping IT decision makers make these very decisions as you went, right? So I know you're very, very passionate about it, and our team is very passionate about helping to put the right context around these decisions that have to be made, right? And having that expertise really helps.
Yeah, I mean, a good example of that is, we have multiple customers that are, running a hybrid infrastructure in order to work with people, and offer services to people that do use the hyperscalers, right? So we have people that do custom hardware that goes in the data center that basically direct connects into Amazon and all their kind of major availability zones. So we have customers that are kind of adding really cool features, that Amazon just can't support, right? Amazon has to have a certain scale, or Google has to have a certain scale to build some of these solutions. And we have customers doing really cool stuff, then they just end up with hundreds of direct connects into these cloud systems, into these cloud providers, to kind of offer those services, over that fabric and into these hyperscalers. And it's a really cool, it's a really cool solution, and a lot of people do lots of creative stuff. And that's the kind of questions we kind of answer. Say, hey, we have this really cool idea. This would be great if it was available, at a low latency into these cloud providers, and we help them solve those problems. So
Yeah.
I love that stuff, right? That's the kind of stuff we enjoy doing.
Well, and I love what you just said too, because you're seeing a lot of energy out of us today. If you're in the audience and you're paying attention, you know, I often hear about these things being commoditized, the industry's commoditized, whatever. You know what's not commoditized? Expertise, actual solutions, impact, right? All of the
Yep.
business value that comes from it. That is not commoditized. It's something we're passionate about. I love this stuff. Genuinely love helping our customers to achieve and go well beyond their business goals. So I'm going to stick with you for a second there, Jordan. You and I are dealing with this one quite a bit lately, but there's a phenomenon out there, that exists that many people are not going to have to deal with, and that's true. But the reality of it is, there is an impact to the limitations of available power in the grid, to the IT and infrastructure world, especially data centers. You want to talk a little bit about that, just so we can educate our public here around what we're dealing with and how that impacts decisions.
Yeah, just to give you, just some background. Basically, the AI infrastructure takes a lot more power than anything that's kind of happened in the space before. So there's a very high power demand from a lot of these kind of new AI companies, and people are, there's a, I don't want to call it a bubble, but there's obviously a lot of interest right now. And a lot of people are trying to build out tons of AI infrastructure to be able to lease it out to, you, me, small business, large business, lease it right out directly to Microsoft, people like that. And these new data centers are reserving and trying to pick up a lot of electricity from all around the world. Obviously, there's only so much power to go around before we have to build additional generation, before we have to build, do additional kind of creative things to get that power out there. Obviously, this new stuff also requires newer data center technology, right? These very high power density things, that you hear about, water cooling, stuff like that. Most of that stuff does not work in data centers that are more than a few years old. So there's a lot kind of changing there. It's not something that's going to probably affect, the majority of our customers, as they're not buying power at that scale. There definitely will be an impact on pricing going forward for a while, as this kind of, the market kind of figures itself out. And there's a bunch of, and again, I'll say political stuff, but there's definitely some issues that need to be resolved when it comes around, the power that these data centers are paying and how it affects the consumers, people in your house. If a big data center buys a whole bunch of power and the power generator has to do a bunch of work, sometimes that work gets spread across all of the users of the power, right? And it's not really fair if your power has to go up at your house because some data center pulled up all the power. But there's discussions and solutions, getting work looked at and worked out for that. There's a lot of really cool technology coming out, these small modular reactors, small turbine generators, natural gas stuff. There's a lot of really stuff, and I really do think it's pushing the kind of the industry forward. It's a super exciting time, on the kind of nuclear front, getting more clean energy into these data centers. But what people are finding out is the issue is actually more around the transmission of the power than it is around the power itself. So getting the power to the data centers, that's why you're seeing some stuff that, we'll touch on a little more about people doing, you've seen Google and Microsoft offer some, pick up some data centers, very, they call it kind of behind the meter, or basically co-located very close to very large power plants. And that really helps. That hasn't been an option historically because there's been a latency constraint around a lot of people's workloads. So a lot of people wanted to be close to all the users.
Yeah.
So, with some changes, the way things are going now, those, you don't have to be as close. A lot of the GPU stuff is less, latency sensitive. You can run your workload, do your job. It can be anywhere. And then, the job comes back to you and it's not super high latency, super important how long that takes, if it takes an extra second.
Yeah, and I want to wrap this up because I know it sounds kind of hyper technical when we're talking about some of this and why do I have to worry about power and whatnot. But I mean, even Jeff, I mean, we're even seeing a quite famous nuclear facility being kind of re-engaged because this is such an issue. And so you want to talk about just briefly some of the things you've been seeing out there that are directly related to this topic.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan just sort of touched on, putting data centers closer and closer to the power so that they're getting, I love the phrase direct connect into it, behind the meter type of environment. I'm an old guy, gentlemen, and I remember growing up in upstate New York, and my grandparents lived in southeastern Pennsylvania, and they had to come live with us for a while because a certain nuclear power plant, 3 Mile Island, was having some issues, which ultimately caused it to be turned off. They're turning it back on now. Microsoft has announced that they're going through the steps that what needs to do to turn that back on. The big constraint right now is where we can find the power for this stuff. We can build the rooms, we can get the internet there. Challenge is going to be in the power. And so what you find, I love what Jordan talked about, is our internet environment has gotten so fast and our workload so distributed now that that we don't necessarily have to sit next to the data center. And because of transmission challenges, we're sitting those data centers next to the power.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of worked through some of the main topics, and I want to make sure that that we roll through to the Q&A here in a second. But I have this amazing opportunity with you two here, so I'm gonna take my shot and ask you guys kind of a I'm always learning. I'm learning from people like you all the time, and it's just awesome. But Jeff, if you had to look at it right now, what would you say is one trend in IT that you're most excited about, and how do you see it impacting the role of technical decisions over the next few years?
Yeah, so I even hate to say, because we sort of threw some rocks at AI to a degree. People look at it as this all-encompassing AI thing that they can just throw at their organization. But the reality is AI absolutely has a place in organizations today. That may make some folks nervous. May make you think, hey, we're bringing the Borg in and we're going to lose control. I don't know where to apply these challenges. Well, the best place to apply AI right now, if you're concerned or you aren't exactly sure where to put it, is to use what I would call embedded AI. So that is the native AI that's going to be part of the tooling that you're already using. Are you a Salesforce customer? Well, dig into some Einstein. Are you in the Google suite? Get some Gemini. Are you in Microsoft? It's Copilot. And find ways to help your knowledge workers make faster decisions and do the things that they need to do on a faster, more efficient basis. I'm using these tools every single day. It's not, well, I'm about to say it's not rocket scientist. There's rocket science absolutely going on behind the scenes, but I'm not inventing some new thing. I'm using the tools that are there to help me create the content, write the words, get the job done faster, more efficient, and I'd like to think with a higher quality. It is a tool. Utilize the tools that are there. The other thing that's going to do is that is going to teach your employees how to use this new employee called AI, because you should think about AI as an employee that is coming into your organization. It's a great concept that Cerny Kaushik brought up over at Rackspace when I was there, and give him full credit for that. But I love thinking about AI as another employee, as somebody who's going to sit at a desk next to your other employees and do work. That allows you to put some brain power around how are we going to think about how we manage these folks, who are we going to bring in, how are we going to get that work done, and how are we going to measure efficiency. So that's what I'm super excited about is having less busy work to do and being
Yeah.
able to do the creative things that I was hired to do in the first place.
Love that. I love that. I'm excited about AI. I mean, we just have to, as you said, really build those meaningful use cases and really find a way to leverage. And in my opinion, it's not a dip a toe in the water. It's jump in with both feet, but figure out a way to make sure that you're really on point with your planning and how you're going to do that and what your expected outcomes are. So Jordan, if different question for you, if you had to go back, you're an incredible entrepreneur. You've grown companies. You've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers around the world. If you had to go back to the beginning of your career and change one thing, what would you change?
Hindsight's always 2020. It's a great question, Kevin. I mean, there's so many things that I could say I would do differently or better or another way. I think there's so many things we could talk about here. But I think automation is always a good one. Like I think everyone, being automation first is something that truthfully, I don't know if it existed at the same level when we got started. I mean, it's possible to kind of code things, automate things at a point, but these days, seeing what software is coming out these days, and if we were to start what we did again today, it would be so much easier. Obviously it didn't exist, when we were starting, but there's so much great automation stuff out there, so many great platforms, so many great, toolkits to kind of do the automation you need is awesome. And obviously AI is making it even better. The ability for AI to kind of help you code something or help you write software, help you find data is really a game changer. Stuff Jeff was saying is like, look at it as an employee. That was a great way to talk about it is look at this guy help you out, help it optimize your employees. But I mean, realistically, I would have probably not renewed our office lease a couple years before COVID started. That would have helped. But I mean, realistically, I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, I mean, it's failing is the name of the game, right? You have to fail quickly, make a mistake, change your course and move on. I mean, when we started this company, we were doing, web hosting, right? We did that for a few years, shifted into dedicated servers, shifted into infrastructure. I mean, that's how we got where we are today. We got, as we kind of made changes, we had thousands and thousands of people paying us, $5 a month for web hosting. We decided this is, too heavy a support load. It's not for us. We're going to focus on bigger, more enterprise customers where we can really move the needle and not be a commodity. So that's the kind of decisions we made over the years, to kind of grow and help people do kind of cool stuff, and let, the most important thing is let our staff also have really cool customers to do cool things with. That's what's exciting, right?
Yeah,
is like coming up with really cool solutions or really cool customers where we're working together. I mean, there's a lot of challenges lately. We touched on this at the beginning, people moving to and from the cloud. A lot of people lost a lot of their expertise in that transition to the cloud. They had that, they did a big cost saving exercise. Okay, we're going to move all this stuff to the cloud, to the cloud, and now we won't need our network engineers anymore. We won't need our data scientists anymore. We don't need our data center staff anymore. And then they're like, oh crap, we're paying all this money. It costs us way more than it did with all this staff. We want to move back, but they don't have those people anymore. Right. So it's decisions like that, thinking about that stuff, being prepared for that that change is stuff that, the kind of tweaks we make going forward.
And I love your comment about failing. Look, fast fail is important, right? Especially in a growth business. And the reality of it is, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, right? Yeah. So push yourself to take those difficult steps. But all right, well, we're winding down our time with our friends here. So I want to get to some Q&A, but just to quickly recap, we've talked about a number of things, a number of trends. We've talked about, and these are hot topics out there, cloud repatriation. What does it mean? What are we seeing from the big players and everybody, that are making that decision right now? We have another session in a couple of weeks to cover that topic. So we look forward. If that's something that's interesting to you, join us then. We talked about AI workloads. AI is it's such a hot topic right now, right? Everybody's talking about AI, the impact of AI. What should we be doing? What shouldn't we be doing? Well, the reality of it is you need to have that hybrid mentality and really have a plan for what workloads belong in the cloud and how they need to be managed. We talked about future-proofing your infrastructure and the challenge with that. I think the thing that I took away from that is really have a plan, work with some experts, either with our team or others that you work with, but really work with people to make sure that you're making the right decisions to future-proof your infrastructure. And then we talked somewhat about the power constraints in the grid and how that's impacting our world right now. Might have even been something I've found on the power topic that's been something recently that some people aren't even aware of. So our goal is just to educate, get the topics on the table, have a discussion, and really that's how we get to some solutions. So with that being said, I want to kind of get to some Q&A. So let me open up and see what we've got going here. If you have any questions, feel free to hit the Q&A. We've got a couple that came in earlier. Jeff, how should companies address sustainability in infrastructure planning?
They absolutely should be. First of all, let's be clear about that. For a lot of different reasons. One, it's the right thing to do. Secondly, quite frankly, it'll help you be a more competitive individual organization in the business environment. And then lastly, if you're an organization here in the U.S., where most of us are, where we're having this conversation, more and more regulation are coming this way. There was a lot of stuff was announced earlier this year in the EU that's being adopted over there. Even if you're an organization that is headquartered here in the US, if you're doing business in other parts of the world, you're going to have to make sustainability part of the story. You're going to need to be able to tell the story in a couple of different ways. First of all, you're going to need to be able to tell it about what you as an organization is doing to help lower your carbon footprint, what you're doing to help be a better citizen here on our little blue globe. But the second piece is you also need to take it to that second degree, and that is what's happening with your suppliers and vendors. How are they being treated? Because those are also part of the overall sustainability index that you're going to need to be able to report on.
Yeah, it's I'm glad sustainability came up overall. Not a topic that we were covering today overall, but definitely important to be having in the conversation. Jordan, how can organizations manage AI's growing demands when its future use is really uncertain? How do I make investments and support where I'm going and I'm not quite sure where I'm going? How would you handle that? And the follow up to that while you're going is, how does it impact your security concerns?
I mean, first of all, if you're not sure, then you probably shouldn't be making too big of an investment. That's the point, to do the testing and play around. I mean, that's a perfect use for the hyperscalers. Go turn a couple things on, go play with it, get some idea what you're doing, buy some of those existing services. buy those services from existing vendors to kind of turn it on, let it, play with it a little bit. It's I would not suggest making a big investment right now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff changing really rapidly in the industry. It's really exciting. I mean, I know we just touched on sustainability, but one of the nice things is the power usage of these systems is coming down significantly. And I'm sure Jeff has some stuff to comment on this as well. But the nice thing is the next generation chips coming out at the end of this year, the beginning of next year, power usage is much lower, which means we're going to still have these huge data centers, but they're going to get way more power out of, way more AI out of each of these facilities. And as time goes on, it's going to get better and better and better. So I know, Jeff, we talked about this earlier with Moore's Law and all that.
Yeah, I mean, each year things are getting tighter. They're getting smaller, more efficient. We're seeing the same thing in AI as we've seen in computing over time. And just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying there, Jordan, where if you're not exactly sure what to do, then don't pull the ripcord and start doing something other than start learning. Now is the time. If you're not ready to act, you can and should be at a point of learning. I lead a bunch of workshops. Feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do to help there. If you have any questions, happy to get on a phone and talk about ways that you can learn and figure out what those next steps may or may not be for you.
It's actually a really good point, Jeff, that you lead workshops, and I would implore our viewers to really take a look at that type of an offering, because you both, Jeff with Rackspace, Jordan with Server Central and Deft, and now Summit, you both have gone through this multi-decade journey of how infrastructure and cloud overall are playing on the back end of all of these moves, right? All of these big shifts in technology and in decisions. And we're facing potentially the largest one of our lifetime with AI. Could be, right? We'll see directionally where it goes. But I think having the guidance and the expertise to have these dialogues and to do some planning, I can assure you that the team that you have, you may love your folks and they may be very talented, but if they're not living and breathing this stuff every day, there's no way for them to be 100% up to speed on every single detail to be able to help you navigate these waters. So, leveraging experts like Jeff and like Jordan, I would recommend to all of you who are watching that there's quite a bit of benefit to that, right?
Yeah.
Shifting topics.
It's great.
Go ahead, Jordan.
I was gonna say it's great to kind of be another one of these situations with GPUs. I mean, it happens. There's been these shifts in technology over the years. Again, we've both been doing this 25 plus years, and but it's never made it as far kind of into the mainstream as this kind of AI ML thing. There's been changes. We've seen like there are finance companies using ASICs and stuff like this, doing kind of cool stuff on the side, but it's never really made it in, right? I mean, the closest thing I could probably say is maybe like when SSDs came out, right? SSDs isn't something like your mom knows about, but my mom knows about AI now, right? But the change of SSD from a spinning disk, huge change in the data center, huge, way less power, way more performance, but only made a couple, it was only interesting to a couple people because it was, on the tech side, right? But AI is out there and it's a totally different, it's another game changer in the amount of kind of the compute speed, right? What you can get out of one of these systems.
Somebody said something to me the other day that I thought was really funny, and it was kind of a comparison of what AI looked like when we were growing up, or when you had the Terminator vision. AI is going to take over the world, and like AI is bad, and AI is going to take over all of our systems and everything. And now here we are, and my late 70s parents last night, as I was having dinner with them, they're using AI to figure out some things and everything. And I'm like, look at this, that's awesome, right? That they're leveraging that in their day to day, but there's something going on the back end there. And when you bring that to scale in a business environment and start looking at your business, I mean, goodness gracious, it takes quite a bit to support that. So one more question and then we'll wrap we're right about at time. So, I think I'll start with Jeff on this. We talked about hybrid, but really another way of saying that is a multi-cloud strategy. How is the rise of multi-cloud strategies influencing infrastructure decisions right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's a few ways to think about that. So you've got multi-cloud, which is where I'm going to have more than one public cloud. There's hybrid cloud. There's where I'm going to have some public environment. I'm going to have some private environment, or hybrid multi-cloud, which you have everything. Now, you have to, I'm always a proponent, as you probably figured out so far, that you're going to choose the right computing environment for the right application or the right purpose that you have to do. Now you have to temper that to a degree, because you can't, as an organization, you can't expect that your people are going to be able to support every technology in every environment. So you have to put some governors on there. You have to make some decisions, or at least decisions for now. Don't be afraid to come back and reassess them in 9 or 12 months, 18 months, that says, hey, look, we for our steady state environment, for those things that just don't change all that much, where I'm going to consume a lot, let's bring in a modern private cloud. You guys are awesome about operating those for folks and making those available at an economical way that gives you such flexibility that you wouldn't expect to find outside of a public cloud. Secondly to that, though, is to think about where you're going to use public cloud and use those fit for purpose things that can connect together, that aren't going to paint you into a corner, that you can look back on in 9, 12, 18 months and decide if it's still the right environment, because you need to reassess those things.
Yeah, I said that was the last question, but I see Vince Gallo. I see you out there. I appreciate you throwing in a question at the 11th hour here, but I'm gonna jump on this one, Jordan. I'm gonna give this one to you. Vince's question is Summit versus Azure environment, i.e., not MS AVD. How does Summit compare, and/or why would Summit be a better option?
I mean, truthfully, there's not going to be a great answer to this question. I mean, it really depends on the workload, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, again, as Jeff was kind of saying earlier, all these clouds have, they have a bunch of really cool features and applications, managed databases, a lot of things that, if you don't have the people to manage this kind of stuff, it's not the right, it can solve a lot of problems for you. But I mean, to answer this question, truthfully, we'd have to talk, Vince, a little bit more about what you're trying to do, what your workload is to really be able to answer this. I mean, I would say our stuff, you generally kind of find it more performant. We'd generally be a little faster, a little bit, better performance storage, better performance CPU, because we, usually we'll have kind of newer stuff than you'll see on the clouds. But I mean, realistically, it's going to really depend on what you're trying to accomplish. Unfortunately, I don't have a perfect answer for you on this one.
No, I would echo that.
Personally, I think that was the perfect answer. I mean, you're walking the talk. I mean, Jordan, you're here to represent what Deft can do in the capabilities against Azure, and you took the right line, and that was, it depends, and that is the right answer.
Yeah, it feels uncomfortable maybe when you're saying something like it depends, because it feels like you're hedging. But the reality of it is you're hedging for the right reason. What we would need is more information, more context, because we are not in any way saying that there's anything wrong with the public cloud. In fact, we're actually suggesting, Jordan gave a great use case. If you're early on in AI and you want to test out some use cases and whatnot, that potentially the public cloud is a great place. So those are workloads that could belong there.
We use it, guys. We have stuff on the public clouds. We're not trying to shove anybody where they don't belong. We have stuff on all the major clouds, and it's gret. Yeah. We're perfectly happy using it. We're hybrid, just like everybody else should be. Yeah.
And you just said it. Put it in the right. Some things are meant to be private, right? But also some things are meant to be public. So put it in the right place. And to answer your question in the end, Vince, to put a bow on it, because I feel like we've beaten it up a little bit, but it's exactly what we take pride in, which is having that conversation and not trying to shove an answer down somebody's throat, and really help to make a good, educated decision. And in some cases, we're not the right answer. We know that, and we're going to make that recommendation and hopefully help people out in that way as well. So, in the end, if you're looking at these trends that we talked about today, or if you're struggling with them or want to have a conversation with them, I would recommend that we do a one-on-one consult. Exactly what Vince's question was around, right? Let's do that one-on-one. Let's let our experts, people a lot smarter than me, who can come in and take a look at your business and really get to know how it is that you're trying to leverage infrastructure, what your desired outcomes are, and help you make a better decision. Because in the end, we all want a better ROI from our technology investments, right? So my ask of you, your takeaway should be, you don't have to necessarily buy any product or any service from us, but leverage our expertise, have a dialogue. If we can help, we'd like to be in a position to earn the business. Same with Jeff. Jeff is doing workshops all the time, helping executives and teams and companies and organizations really circle around the challenges that they're having and then put together their desired outcomes. So I would say you've got some pretty smart people on here who can help you out. And I would, if you reach out to us, we'll help you get there.
Yeah, Kevin, absolutely. We love talking about this stuff, and this is, with us, with anybody else, anything, this is what we love doing. So we're happy to talk about it if it's something to do with us or not.
Yeah. So in the end, thank you so much. There's nothing more valuable than your time, and you took your time today to come and hear us talk about these trends out there in the tech world. I have to give a massive shout out to Jeff DeVerter and Jordan Lowe, our experts today. Couldn't do this stuff without you guys. Your insights are completely, they're awesome. It really gets me excited about the things that we do on a day-to-day. So both of you, thank you very, very much for giving of your time. If you want to hear more about the cloud repatriation portion of this conversation, we're going to be doing a session. I mentioned this earlier on October 24th at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be sending out quite a bit of information around that, but please do take a look at it. If you want to delve into that as a topic, reach out. You can reach me at karmstrong@summithosting.com. Just call me. I would love to have a conversation with you. And thank you again so much for taking the time for joining us today. And we look forward to having our next conversation with all of you. Have a great Monday.
Thanks all.